This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements. Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and The Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast with Geoff Miller, the former England chairman of selectors. In this podcast, Geoff spoke about the challenges facing the current England selectors and the successes he had whilst on the panel. And do you think it's harder now to pick an England team with all the one-day cricket and the 100 and everything else?
Absolutely. It's not just that. Yes, there are different formats of the game which make it much more difficult. But as I've said to many people, the standard of county cricket, because there are no top England players because of contracts and there are no top overseas players playing it, the standard or the gap between county cricket now, domestic county cricket and international cricket has widened. So the only way you now find out whether you're international quality is by playing in the international team, the test team. And that is massively difficult because you are automatically playing against the best in the world. So it's a very, very difficult scenario. And, it's not the players' fault as such because they are playing the standard of cricket, county cricket, that is shown to them. And from a selection point of view, the people that are the players that are doing best, are scoring the most runs or looking the best players or taking the most wickets and looking the best bowlers are the ones that get selected. But that doesn't automatically mean they're international quality because they're not finding out in that domestic game how good you have to be an international player. They're not playing against them. I can go back, and this sounds like an old fella talking about the old game, but whoever you played against county-wise, if it was Derbyshire against Somerset, for argument's sake, you played against Viv Richards and Joel Garner, and you played against Ian Botham and Brian Rose and international players. You went to play against Notts, you played against Richard Hadley and Clive Rice and Gary Sobers. So, and I can keep firing through all counties. Surrey, you were Sylvester Clarke, Jeff Howarth. There was always top international players playing against you. So you find out how good you had to be an international player. Now, it's not like that. They only find out by being selected to play, and that becomes tough because it's much more difficult. So the gap is bigger. What we tried to do when I was involved in it is close that gap by creating the A team or the Lions. Didn't automatically mean that it improved you technically, but you found out mentally by a bit more of a stride how good you had to be mentally to actually cope with the international scene. So it didn't automatically, as I say, it didn't automatically mean it showed you technically, because you were probably playing against, I don't know, Sri Lanka B or Sri Lanka A or West Indies A. So the standard was very similar, but you were that one step nearer to the big stage.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Some interesting points there. You also became an England selector. We mustn't forget that in 2000, and you were chairman, I think, from 2008. I think you would call yourself national selector.
Well, I didn't call myself any. It was the change in title, that whatever you wanted to call it. Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
How much did you enjoy being an England selector?
I did enjoy it, but it was an honour. It was a privilege to do it. And what the hard part for me, Stephen, at the time, because I'd got the reputation and the knowledge of all the players and round about, that there was this, I don't know, for want of a better phrase, a stand-up comic. And when you're dealing with people's international careers and livelihoods, there's no humour with that. You've got to put the serious head on, and lots of serious conversations, lots of serious thoughts, decisions to make. So you had to have the time to do it, because there's a lot of travelling involved. You had to have the knowledge of what was required to be an international cricketer, both, as I've said many times in this interview, technically and mentally and physically, and the communication skills, to talk to people honestly. And what I insisted was that all difficult conversations and all pleasant conversations were done face to face. So if I had to have a hard conversation with somebody, I would drive to them and do it.
Well, players must have liked that.
A
stark difference from when you found out yourself how you got selected for England. Yeah, in 1976.
That may be one of the reasons why I took the decision I did. That, if I've got to leave somebody out or not select somebody, I've got to give them a reason for it. And it's a hard conversation. They're not going to agree with it, are they? But as long as there was an honesty there and a straight talk and a reason why, they might not agree with the reason, but at least you can explain the reason why the decision's been made. And there's no better way, because you can't hide your eyes and your character if you're doing it face to face and person to person.
Well, I think England won the Ashes 3 times when you were involved, and we also became the number 1 side in the world. What would you consider your major selection successes as a selector?
It's very difficult. This is a team game, Stephen. It's very difficult to itemise certain players, because we had a top side. We had a really, really good side. All players were international quality. If I run through, I don't need to run through the side. You've got Andrew Strauss, you've got Alistair Cook, you've got Jonathan Trott, you've got Kevin Peterson. You can just keep going through it all the way through, batting wise. Ian Bell, number 6, it could have been anybody. We had Ravi Bapara there, Matt Pryor, keeper wise, and then bowling wise, he got the spinner. But the 2 vital aspects I've said many times, and they're all quality players in different aspects of the game. The 2 that I thought gelled us together as a side best. One was Jonathan Trott, because what Trotty could do is, whatever the situation, after 1 wicket down, whether it was 0 for 1 or whether it was 120 for 1, he gave you that solidarity. He gave you that strength of a number 3 who bat time for you. And because all the other players could bat round it, play around that. So and it's a vital aspect of the game. Number 3, batting wise, all others are vital, obviously, but number 3 is a fulcrum. It's a vital aspect of it, and he did that job magnificently, right? So that secured, to me, our batting. Somebody else could have batted probably number 3, but in that team, he was the 3. The other bowler, the other player who gave us the chance to widen the side was Graham Swan. Now, what Swanee did, he could bowl overs, and he earned respect of opposition. And that is a vital aspect. So what he could do, he could bowl overs on non-conducive spin wickets, bowl tight. And then he could also, on conducive turning wickets, bowl opposition out. So he could bowl a lot of overs for us, whichever way, which meant we only had to have 3 seamers. We could, 3 seamers, because a 4th seamer would hardly bowl any overs. So we got 3 seamers, which that allowed us then to play an extra batter. So we could play an extra batter at 6. You've got Matt Pryor at 7, who became a quality player as well. So all of a sudden, we had got massive strength in depth in the side, and which was the vital aspect on the periphery as well. So players that came in, whether it was for lack of form, for the players in the side, whether it was injury or whatever it was, players that came in, it wasn't detrimental to the performance of the side. They became quality players. So we then had strength in depth, a quality squad. And that's why we became number 1 in the world, without a shadow of a doubt.
And we also had some very successful coaches with Duncan Fletcher and Andy Flower as well. Yes,
we did. Yeah. Well, what we had at that time was a very, very good peripheral ring as such. All right, it was Duncan and then it became Andy. But we'd also got a very, very strong selection process as well, because we've got Ashley. Ashley was a selector at the time, Ashley Giles and Jimmy Whittaker. And Ashley was at Warwickshire, so he was watching Division 1 players constantly and coming back with reports on those. Jimmy and myself were doing the miles, watching players all over the place, having conversations with them. And you'd got the captain, who became Straussy, very level-headed, very good. And in the office there, you'd got Hugh Morris, who, understood where we were going, told us what was happening office-wise. So we'd got a real good, as well as good a quality side on the field, we'd got a quality side off the field as well, which were doing their job peripherally. And so there was, I like to feel, and I'm sure, a mutual respect between the players to the off the field, and there was a massive respect for the off the field to the players on the field, because they were doing, so both sides were doing their job.
So it sounds like we had a good team, and that's shown in the results as well. What do you think to the new system where one person is actually in Chris Silverwood picking the team?
I don't know. I can't see how it can work. All right. Well, I'm presuming he's got scouts all around the country, which are throwing advice to him, whatever. But I think there's always opinions required. If we had a team meeting, and a selection meeting, I beg your pardon, a selection meeting. And there was 4 of us in there. And I let other people come in as well. Captain Cook, he didn't get a vote, but, we'd have conversation. We knew who the 4 selectors were. And if a selection was 3-1 for a certain player, if somebody was needed to come in, it wasn't an automatic, you're outvoted. It was, why are you 1 against the 3? What's that person got? So he was then allowed, it could have been me, it could have been Jimmy, it could have been Ashley, it could have been Andy, it could have been anybody. If their 1 has got strong relevance to the conversation or to the selection, we revisited it. And then if it felt it was a strong enough reason for him to have his opinion, then we'd have another look at it. But so it was a constant. There was no just you're outvoted. So there became an animosity. There was none of that at all. It was real good spirit, and done properly, and in the end done very well.
Yeah, it must make it harder. And I had Roland Butcher on the podcast a few months ago. Roland.
How is he, Butch? I haven't seen him for a while. Is he all right?
He's very well, thank you. Yeah, good. I've had podcasts to his house in Barbados.
All right, nice one.
No, he's been very good on the podcast, and he's been reviewing some of the test series with me. And he felt that it was hard for one person to be making all the decisions if someone did badly, and they had to sort of explain. And you could fall out with someone. That's what his thoughts were. And
I tend to agree. But I'm not sure why. I don't know who's made that decision, whether Ashley's made the decision. I have no idea who's made the decision. Obviously, I'm not involved anymore. But I would agree with Butch, what he's just said there. I would find that increasingly difficult to come up with a round, solid decision.
Well, thank you very much for those thoughts on selection. And you retired from that role at the end of 2013.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and now on Instagram at the Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.